Right, guys, let's get started. So as I mentioned, my name's Chris Dorr. I'm the Customer Support Manager for vintrace, and I'll be running you through the webinar today, where we're going to be looking at the new interface and all the different bits and pieces to do with that, so that you can switch over it. So the reason I guess we're having this webinar is we're going to make it the default option beginning on June 15th. So you'll still have the option to go back to the old vintrace, but that's going to be the default. And I'll show you how to get back and where to find everything today, but that's kind of the main purpose. So some of you have never used it before or aren't really familiar with it and have been sort of holding off. So this will be the perfect place to see where everything is. As usual, this will go to our YouTube channel. So if you have to leave or need to send it on to someone else, this will be uploaded, and I'll show you where to get to that YouTube channel, just so that you can keep an eye on all the videos that we're putting up. And if you've got any questions, which they're already coming in, then please send those through, and I'll try to answer those as I go. But if I don't get through all of them while they're flying in, stick around for the end of the webinar, and I'll try to get through each and every one of them. If not, there'll be email follow-ups to make sure that you do get answers regardless of whether I get to them today. All right, so let's get started. So I'll just log into my vintrace, and you'll see I'm actually in the old or the classic vintrace interface. So some of you have just solely been using this and haven't even looked at their new interface yet, and may not even know how to access it. But in the top right, you'll see there's a try the new vintrace. So if you click onto that one, that'll take you into the new interface, and you'll see up the top as well, there's a set new vintrace as default. So there's a sort of a little countdown option that we've got there. So as of that date, it'll be the default interface. You can still go back to the classic one that some of you've been using for quite a while, but it's just going to be the default. So you'll log into this first, and then if you need to, you can go back. So if you're happy to set it as a default earlier, you can just click on this button, and this will basically set it as a default. So every time I log in now, I'll go to this page first before I go to the classic interface. So what we'll look at today is just all the navigation, how to get around, where to find all the same things that you're used to. A couple of the sort of new features that we've just released into the interface as well. Some of the things you might have missed while sort of looking around yourselves. So I guess the first thing we'll start with is just the left-hand side here. This is the navigation bar, and this is kind of where most of the main areas of the software will be. So obviously you see I'm on the dashboard at the moment, but we've got a vessels tab, fruit intake. So a lot of the same sort of stuff that you're used to will be in there. If you're not too sure what each of those icons mean, just click the vintrace logo up the top, and that'll just expand out and tell you. So you can see that this one's the lab, this one's inventory. It just gives you a little bit more context to what you're looking at. So we'll go through a few of those today. We won't be able to get through all of them, but we'll go through the most important ones. And then down the bottom, we've got the more options, which we'll go to. But if there's something that you're looking for that isn't sort of listed here, the most likely place to find it is in that more options. So we'll spend a little bit of time in there later as well. So just like the classic vintrace interface, we do have the search up the top here. So you can search for wines, vessels, blocks, whatever it is. It'll look up whatever in the system and see what it can find. So if I type in AD, you'll see it's brought up this particular batch in tank, and it's also brought up a stock item that I've got as well. So from there, I can click into it and then have a look at it. Either of those items in a little bit of detail. The barcode option is still there. So if you click on that, you can scan a work order or a lab label, or you can type into that box as well. So if you've got a work order, type that in, hit enter, it'll just bring you up into the work order or whatever the barcode was that you were scanning. One of the new little features that we have added is the little help option on the right hand side there. So if you click on that help, this will just give you a little bit of a bot. So if you do have some questions or you're trying to look up for some documentation, you can simply just type in what you're looking for. So if I was interested in topping barrels, I can search for that. The little bot there will just search help center, and it'll give you a few articles that might help you. So setting up barrels, topping up barrels, post fermentation, and you can use that to just quickly get onto some of those useful articles. If it doesn't get you what you want, just click the get in touch option, and then you can leave a message. It'll grab all your details, so you can submit a ticket straight to the help desk. So I'm trying to top my barrels, don't know what I'm doing, please give me a call, that kind of thing. Once you send that, that'll go into a ticket, so the support team can help you out. So I'll just giving you more options, I guess, to find a bit of assistance when you need it. So that's using the little help option there on the right hand side. Up in the top right, you'll see where it's got my name. We've got a little sort of profile icon up there. There's a couple of handy options in here. So if you click onto that, so I guess the most useful ones, we've got the switch winery. So if anyone's coming from a multi winery database where you have a couple of facilities using the same vintrace, you can click on the switch winery if you have that permission, and switch between JX2 wines here in the Eastern Winery, so you can still go about and change which location you're actually working in. It'll tell you just under your name as well which winery you're in, so I'm in the JX2 wines at the moment. Some of the other options, we've got the change password. So obviously, if you need to change your password for whatever reason, you can do that when you're logged in. If you're not logged in, you can't remember your password, there is a forgot your password link on the login page as well. So you don't have to contact us to do that. You can just navigate to the login page and click on that and put your email in and go through all the prompts. The next one is the Managed Sandbox. So this one is very useful, particularly if you want to try out the new interface. You may be not too sure about it. You don't want to do it in your live vintrace database. So the Sandbox, it'll take you to log in again, but eventually what will happen is you end up in a copy of your database. It'll have the demo mode that you're seeing that I've got on the top of mine, which you won't have on your live version, but you'll be able to then play around in the Sandbox. It'll have the data, same functionality, but it obviously doesn't impact your production data. So if you want to try something out, you're training someone up on the interface yourselves, highly recommend using the Sandbox, because it's gonna keep things separate, and you can try out some things that you may not be doing. And the next one is the classic mode. So this is how you get back to the vintrace classic mode here. So there's two ways to do it, but as I said, after June 15th, when we start rolling out, this is the default. You'll still be able to get back to the classic. You just need to click the classic mode here. It'll open up another tab, and you'll be back to where we were earlier. The other option is the bottom left-hand corner. There is a back arrow there, so you can use either of those two options, and that'll take you to a classic vintrace tab. And then if you've got something particular that you need to look at, or you can't quite find it in the new interface, you can use that option down there. And the lucky last one that we'll look at is just the help and support option that you can click here. And again, that's in the bottom left with the question mark. They'll do the same thing. That just gives you another help option. So it's got our phone number. You can log a ticket, search our help center again to find some articles that might be of use. You can also suggest an idea. So if there's something that you think would be great to add to vintrace that doesn't quite exist, click that link. It'll take you to another little portal to log into, and you'll be able to see plenty of ideas that have been already posted. So jump in there, add your comments, what you'd like to see, why you'd like to see it, and then we sort of go through that list periodically to get an idea of what people are after, and what we can actually add into the product. Last one there is start screen share. If you do call the help desk and we kind of need a screen share to get going, you can just jump in there, click that option, and sort of follow through the prompts. So you might get asked to do that if you ever do call in to the help desk. All right, cool. So that's our little user profile icon there. So one of the new releases or new features that we added to the interface was actually just to change your starting page. So originally, everyone was starting on this vessels page here. You didn't get a choice, and obviously some people don't want to see that when they first log into the interface. So what we've done is we've given the option to on a number of pages to change your starting page. So if I go to the Batch Explorer, you'll see the little star option here. So if you just click on that, that'll now be your default start page. So when you log in, I'll be going straight to the Batch Explorer. So obviously, the classic vintrace started out looking at a dashboard, and that was probably the most popular option that people wanted to see. So if you click on the dashboard as your default there, you'll log straight into the dashboard, just like you basically have been, and then you can navigate obviously to everything else afterwards. So that's something that we've sort of added based on customer feedback. So while we're on the dashboard here, we'll have a quick look at it. So it is a little bit different to the classic dashboard that we've got, in that we've got the addition of these little tiles up the top here, which is what we call insights. So they're just a little quick stat, like, sort of the business. So you'll be able to see a single number and then a comparison to a previous period. So you'll see this one's fairly useful. Fruit received. So we're saying we've got 789 tons, which is up 52%. So you can edit with the little three dots and click the configure option. And in there, it'll actually let you decide what you want to see. So you might, it's looking for the current vintage compared to the previous vintage, but you might want to be a bit more specific and say, I would like to see maybe your red fruit comparison, and you can obviously update the title there. And so that would then just show us that we've got 345 tons. So it does have some sort of little customization options in those insights, and you can sort of add and remove whatever makes sense for your particular dashboard. Each of these dashboards are per login, so you can have a different one to your colleague. So go through and add the things that you want to. The bottom section down here is the dashlets that we're on the classic dashboard, so these should be identical to what you had. You can drag and drop them around now, which is a lot easier to sort of shuffle things about. So if you do add a new dashboard in, you can simply just drag it around, and you've still got the same configure options to resize it. So if you want it smaller or larger than what it currently is, you can do that yourself. If you do need to add something to your dashboard, we've got the plus option in the top right there. So you can add a new insight or dashlet, and you'll see that we've got the list of all those default dashlets. So just go through those and pick out ones that are useful for you, and then you can add them into the lists like so. It still has the download option as well for any of those ones in a table sort of format. So click on that and you can download that to a spreadsheet. And if you've got any other sort of data manipulation or anything you need to do, you can get that sort of straight into a spreadsheet and work from there. All right, so that's our dashboard there, which is the very top one off the rank. So the next one is the vessels tab, which is fairly powerful. It's got a lot of use to it, a lot of different things you can do with it. So we'll spend a little bit of time on this one, but effectively it's just a listing of all your vessels or your wines as well, depending on your filters. So first you'll see, I guess at the top, we've got a couple of quick filters here. So the first set is just which type of vessels do you want? Do you want the ones that are currently filled with a wine, which I've currently got set? Would you like to look at the empty vessels in here? Or obviously you can look at everything and get a full listing of all the vessels that you've got set up in your database. The next set is just the vessel type. So if you want to look at just tanks or barrels, you can do that as well. So if I wanted to look at all my empty barrels, I could filter it down that way, or even all my in-use barrels can do it again. So it gives you a bit of flexibility with those. You'll see now that I've selected my barrels in use, it's showing me barrel groups. So it's got only 4 listings there for the 4 barrel groups that I've got. If you want to see the individual barrels within those groups, there's just an additional checkbox there. So if you click show individual barrels, that'll break it down, and you'll see that we've got 12 results in that list now. So it's showing me all the barrels within the group in there. While we're talking about that, I guess you've got the page options down the bottom. So it's going to display a certain number of vessels depending on what you select here. So if you had 10, obviously it's only to put the first 10 on the page. Just make sure to scroll through to the next page if you are looking at a large number of items, so that you don't miss any out. But it'll tell you at the bottom sort of how many things it finds based on your filters that you started with at the top. All right, so that's, I guess, a few of the quick filters. Some of the other options are actually the columns itself. So I think this is a fairly standard list of what I've got here at the moment, but you can configure that to your own liking in a number of different ways. So first of all, we can click the gear icon in the top right, and we're going to see this same icon all over the place today. If you click on that, it's just usually it's the option to decide what you want to see. So in this case, what columns do you want to see in this particular vessels table? So you can scroll through the different options. We've got things about the vessel or the barrel itself, things about the actual contents of that tank, so the wine that's in there, and then some lab information as well can be included into this table. So if I decide that I don't care about the location or the product state of the wine, I might want to see the alcohol, BOME, etc. So you can go through, adjust things as you need. Put the capacity as well, and then we click out of there. And oh, there we go, it was too quick, I didn't even realize. And you'll see there it's got the capacity, alcohol, BOME, etc. added in, it's taken out my product state. So you can decide what you want to see based on that list, and you can keep adding as many different options as you like. So I'll just add a whole bunch in. And you'll see there, it'll just give you a little scroll bar to go across. So if you add in more than what fits on your screen, you can scroll across, or you can even use your keyboard left and right arrows and sort of move across to see every field that you've put into that vessels tab. So obviously we've decided what we want to see, but we might want to filter that down a little bit further. So a good example is we might want to just look at certain vintage of wine. So you can still you can click the little filter chip, I guess, within the table, and it'll give you the options depending on what you click to filter by. So in this case, the vintage, you can select a couple at once. So you could want the last 2 vintages, or you could just select 2020, for example. And if we click the little tick, that'll apply that filter. And in this case, most of it was 2020 anyway, but it'll filter out everything else. So you can then add more filters as well. We could say that we want to just see the Chardonnay batches in addition to them being the 2020, and I'll narrow it down. So you can do a lot more sort of customized filtering with this table, which does make it a little bit easier to kind of find what you're after by applying those filters. And you can also sort as well. So you see the up and down arrows at the bottom of those, so you can sort by any of these fields. So you might want to look at the volume column, and you might want to sort by the smallest batch first, because you want to do certain things to that particular batch, and you just want to list like that. So go through and sort of set up those searches like that is fairly useful. Cool. So I guess that will lead on to the save searches function, and we did get a question about that, which I'll try to remember to answer in a second. But you'll see up the top left, we've got the user save search option. So that was something that we had in the classic vintrace, and is still available because it's super handy. So if you click that, you'll see a list of save searches. Some of these will be default options for everybody. So I think the musts to be pressed and wines in ferment are a couple of those examples. But you can just click on these, and if I've gone unfermented juices, it's gone ahead and just displayed those results. So I haven't had to fill in anything, and it's done what I've asked for. You can click this filter icon here, and you'll be able to see what the save search is doing. So in this case, it's using the ferment state filter, and it just selected the unfermented option. So if you're not quite sure what a save search is there and doing, you can click on that option and you'll be able to see. So that's how to use the save searches. To actually set up a new one, what you need to do is you can go ahead just like I did earlier and sort of filter your searches here. So you can do it two ways as well. You can either do it through the table, or you can actually come into this filter option, click add a filter, and that will give you the list of all the filters. Most of those will be in the table columns as well, but you can go through here and select a filter directly and add in what you're looking for. But we'll just go back and do that same 2020 vintage, and we can do Chardonnay there just as an example. So we might want to look at that list a fair bit. So we want to keep that as a save search. So once you've got that put together, click the filter icon up the top again, and you'll just have the option up here to save that search. So if we click save now, we can give that search a name and save that. And so that's a save search now. So you'll see it's just dropped into my list, so I can click through all the save searches. But you know, when I come back, click my 2020 Chardonnay wines, it goes straight into those, so I don't have to keep setting up those filters each and every time. Once you've run that save search, you can still filter again. So you might want to look at alcohol levels above a certain amount. So you could say we want to see things above 12, for example, and that will then filter it even further. So once you've run the search, you can still keep working away with it from there. So the question we did get was, I've been using the new interface and finding that my save searches don't produce the desired results in the new interface. It seems like the save filters don't transfer to the new interface. Yeah, so that can be true in some instances. The majority of them should work, and it might be worth just reaching out to the support team and letting us know which ones don't. The reason some of them don't is because we've kind of combined a few searches. So originally in the classic interface, you were just using the bulk wine search option to save your searches up here. But in the new interface, because we've got different fields sort of all combined, they do work a little bit differently. You should be able to recreate them if they aren't working, but maybe just let us know what they are, and we can have a chat and work out what's happening with those save searches. Cool. So now that we've got our save searches all done, in the vessels tab, obviously it's all well and good to get a list of wines, but we really want to do something with those. So there are a few options. First of all, if we check each of these, we'll get the actions option there highlighted, so we can do some actions based on what's in that table. So you'll see there that we can request some lab work, we can generate a tasting sheet, you can go straight into operations if you're blending those two wines together, for example, writing work orders for that kind of stuff as well. And then the QR code and barcoding options are down here. So if you want to generate some labels for your vessels, for tanks or barrels, to use the app and scan those, you can set up a big list of vessels in the search and then just generate those. There's a few different options there. I'll just pick one of those so we can take a look, and it'll just download some QR codes in this case that you can then print out and start using for scanning with the app based on what contents are in that tank. So if you haven't already, it's worthwhile checking that out with the app. It's a fairly useful little feature that you can take advantage of while you're walking around the cellar. So that's our actions menu on the left. The other option is on the right hand side, the little download link. So if you just want a list of or a report of what you've got up here, you can use any of these different options. So whether you want a spreadsheet or a PDF, we'll just quickly download a PDF of that table, and you'll get a list of those wines here. So it should output most of what you've got in that table. Obviously, if you've got too much things in there, it'll chop some of the end ones off, because I've got a lot of fields, I could have put this landscape or Excel to get all of them, or take out some of the ones that aren't too useful. But this is a really good way just to get a quick list of wines based on your criteria. So you can use that little download option in the bottom right. And the other ones that we'll take a look at is just these two icons here. So first one's the clipboard or the operations. Anywhere you see that clipboard icon means you can start putting in some jobs. So this has got the full list of operations here, transfers, additions, you name it. And then we've got the create a work order option, so you can go straight into writing a work order from that section there. Same list of operations as per classic vintrace. And the little plus icon, you'll see that all over the place again. It's just meaning you can add something. So whether you need to put in a new tank or barrel, set up a wine batch, or even receiving fruit, you can do it from here. So anywhere the plus icon appears is just a couple of sort of quick options you can get to start inputting some data. All right, cool. And just one question on that as well is, are the bins a new vessel feature and how do they work? No, so the bins have been around for a little while. So these are just going to be fruit picking bins, but you can crush and ferment in those as well. So you see this little bin icon for those ones in there. If you do need to set them up, you can use the setup option, which we'll come back to. You can just search for bins, and it will have a list of bins here. So if you hop into that section, you can add those bins in. Generally, they're used for intaking of fruit. So you can say that we've received 2 blue bins of 5,000 kilos or pounds, and then that'll sort of total up the intake. So you can go through and set those up and use those. But yeah, they're basically just going to list you bins in this particular vessels tab. All right, cool. So what we'll do now is we'll actually have a look at a wine and sort of all the details of that particular wine. So there's a couple of ways to get to it. As I mentioned earlier, you can use the quick search up the top, put the code in of the tank or the wine, or you can simply just click on a link through our vessels page, and that'll open up to this page, which is, I guess, our product page. Similar to the product overview, it has all the details of this particular wine that we're looking at. So you'll see again, it's broken up into tabs for all the different things. We'll go through a couple of those tabs today. But on the first general tab here, you'll see we've got a whole bunch of information, and again, we've got the little gear icon there to actually configure what you want to look at. So heaps of stuff down here, not all relevant to me, so I can actually just hit the details option and take out a few of those things that I'm not too worried about seeing. Take those out. That'll just simplify that list. So you can configure it to your own choosing and see the relevant things to you. Within those tiles as well, little pencil icons all over the place, which will allow you to edit. So a good example is the wine type. If you need to change something from red to rosé, that's sort of where you can do it. But you can change things like the program or product states directly from there. So there'll be little icons, little pencil icons in the top right. You'll see there is a couple of little icons in some of the other ones. So the recent note, you can click the plus and start adding a note directly from there. Or the location will actually then give you a vessel search of all the vessels. So if you look at a barrel group, for example, that would list out all 10 of your barrels, and you could export that list or do some more filtering on it. Cool. And in the middle there, we've got tags. So that's another fairly recent-ish feature. You can tag a wine. So you see there, this one says ready for bottling and tank tasting. You can simply click add, start typing away. It'll either suggest tags that are already created or let you add a new one into that particular section. So if I add filtered, that'll show up there. The tags are available in that vessels tab that we were looking at, so you can filter and search by those. You can even use the quick search, and you see a type filtered. It's just highlighted the tag there, so any other wines that have got that will show up, and you can go through those go through those wines and take a look at them if they need sort of further action. And in the top left here, there's a little icon just next to the W, which is the change batch icon. So this one is pretty useful. So what it'll do is let you edit the batch details. So you can do a lot of it down the bottom in that details section we're looking at. But for example, if you need to change the actual batch code or the description, you can come in here and make those changes. If you've got multiple vessels in the one batch, it'll actually give you two options when you click it. Do you want to edit this batch code, which would apply for all the different vessels, or do you actually want to change the batch? So transfer this to a different batch code, sort of as a movement, I guess. But yeah, you can use this little folder icon over here to change your batches. So we'll have a quick look through some of these tabs. A lot of them are fairly self-explanatory in what they show, but we've got the lab tab here, which will show the results on this wine. So we've just got alcohols on this particular batch. One feature actually that we added due to feedback, if I just step back a second, in the latest lab section, if you click on that, there is a show dates option. So I think by default it shows this option, how recent the result was recorded, which if I just switch, will give you the 9 days ago, a year ago, etc. Not as useful for everyone, so we do have the option to switch it to just the date and time. So that'll show you when those particular results were entered, so that you can get a little bit more specific with the dates and everything of those, and that'll apply for this same lab tab here. So yeah, in this tab, it'll just show you the results. You can click the plus and add in another result. It'll take you to the normal analysis screen in there to put in those figures, and we do have a little chart option as well. So if you click the little trend line there, it will give you a chart and whatever results have been put on that batch. So you can use this at harvest time and have a look at your sugar levels and see how they're actually trending, or any other sort of metric that you like. You can always still go into the reports console, and we do have our standard analysis charts where you can put in multiple things on those charts. Next one up is our ads tab. So this is just what's been added, any allergens in that batch. You can click on the additive name in the table, and that will take you to the wine edition impact report, which really just narrows down to where this was added. So you'll be able to see if it was added because it was blended from something, or where the work order was, or the lot number. So you can get into a lot more detail if you click through to that additive name. The notes tab is just simple text notes that you can record. Click add, go ahead and type away. You can filter those in the vessels tab as well. They can be done on the app. So it's just this is a good place to sort of view them all, but you can add them in a number of different spots. Our composition tab here, so we've got our default options of the vintage, variety, and then regions or AVAs of that particular batch. You can click the gear icon again, and there's different options. So if you've got block detail that you want to see, or you want it sort of broken down a different way, there's sustainable certificates and that kind of stuff that you can have sort of set up. If you need to view that, just drag it over again and take a look at that information. We've got our fruit tab here, which is where that wine's come from. So again, this is something that was in the classic product overview, but it'll show you how much of this wine was from a bulk wine intake that you might have purchased some bulk wine, or if it was crushed from fruit, you'll be able to see that as well. And then it will give you a list of those sort of intakes in this table. So this one was actually docket number 1 and was a bulk intake. You can click on the docket number, and that'll show you all the information about it. So when we purchase this wine, who it was from, that kind of stuff. If it's a fruit intake, it'll give you the same docket number, and you can click on it and have a look at the intake information. It would also give you a block, a clickable block there, so you could actually have a look at the block from this screen. Next one up is our cost tab. So it does a fairly similar thing to what you're used to. It has all our categories at the top there with the per litre or gallon amount, the vessel total and the batch total, so per category, and up the top here for the total amounts. The bottom section here is all our cost history, so where those costs are coming in. So you can see I've got some allocations in there. We packaged some of that wine out, so you'll be able to sort of see what you've added and taken out of that batch. The packaging one, that's a feature that's still in the works, and the jobs tab. So this one is basically the history of this batch, but it will also include jobs that haven't been completed just yet. So you'll see it's got that little 15, which means there's 15 outstanding jobs on this particular batch, and you can tell that by the status. So if you just want a history of things that have happened, you can use completed, but you'll be able to use the other statuses. So for example, if I said ready, I'll be able to see that I've got nine jobs are ready to go that haven't happened yet. So whether they need to be there or not, you can kind of go through and have a look. But we do, have this filter now to let you see what's upcoming for a particular batch. Again, you can filter this table by all those columns, but if you want to look at the more details of that job, you can either you can click the little menu. So if it's a job that's ready to go, you can complete or edit. If it's a job that's already finished, you can go in and view and have a look at what was actually recorded on that particular job. All right, so that's all our tabs. Up the top right, again, we've got similar sort of icons. So the operations again, and our plus icon to add some quick things in there like costs and lab results. The one in the middle of those two is reports. So if you need some quick reports of costing or the status report, you can get them from here. They're all still available in the reports console, same way as you used to, but there's a few sort of quick reports that you can jump into in that section. And then we've got a QR code here as well. So you can either click the show QR code, which will give you something you can scan straight away without needing to print with the app if you want to take a look at that, or you do have the option just to download the labels, just like we saw from the vessels tab. That'll do the same thing and download something for this particular tank. So another feature we have recently added as well, you'll see up the top right, it says 8 of 25 results. So that's because I actually came from the vessel screen and had 25 results in the search. So I can actually click through and go through all the other wines that I had up and sort of work through those results. So it's really handy if you do a save search for, fermenting wines, and then you're having a look at the lab results, and you can click through each of those and sort of go through the list and take a look at, all the lab details one by one, instead of what you had to do is jump out, run the search again, click into something and go back and forth. So we've added that option in so that you can click through those. You can click back on the text in the middle there, and that'll actually take you back to your search there, so you can see what your search was and sort of how far you are through it. So just a couple of little ease of use things that we've added to sort of get through your searches. But that's essentially it for our product page. So if you're ever looking for something on a wine, this is kind of the place to do it, and it's very similar to our product overview sort of section. So there is a question here from Justin. Is there an easy way in the new interface to edit the details of a batch code that was previously created but not used yet? And that is perfectly going to link into the Batch Explorer. So this is where you would go to do that. So the Batch Explorer is kind of looking at the wine as opposed to the vessels or even the individual tank that might have that wine in it. So you'll be able to see here it's obviously got similar details, but it's sort of summarizing it, I guess. So if we look at this example, we've got 2 tanks of this particular batch, and it's telling me that we've also dispatched 20,000 liters. So you can kind of see an overall picture of a batch. What it will do is it'll give you a different status for batches. So you'll see that there's active batches, which are obviously in a tank or barrel at the moment. Any archive batches that you may have inactivated, set them up incorrectly. Depleted ones will be ones that have you fully packaged or bottled out. And then there's new batches. So those are the ones that you actually haven't used yet. They're just being created. So if you do need to edit those as as per the question. This will be the place to do it. So you'll see this one here is a new batch. You can either archive it if you didn't need it, or you can click onto the batch code itself, and this will take you into the batch details. So you'll see that there's all the vintage variety information there. You can edit, or you can edit the code directly from that section there. So all that stuff before you actually go ahead and use this batch can be edited through the Batch Explorer. I'll just pop back to our list. We'll open up a batch that's got something in there so we can have a look, but same thing applies with the editing. So when you open up a batch here, you can see what's still in production. So what vessel, what volumes you've got. It'll tell you what's dispatched, what's been bottled. So in this case, we've had a couple of bottling runs for this wine. You can see the work order numbers, the stock codes, quantities, etc. And then you can also have a look at the costing for that batch. So it allows you a lot easier to have a look at the overall batch instead of just being down to that particular vessel, and obviously looks at dispatched and bottled wine. So this is a sort of a newish addition to the interface, and again you can get some reports and things up the top there as well. So yeah, if you need to do anything with a batch sort of level, this is the place to go, and you can come in here and set up new batches and receive that bulk wine in as well. So that works pretty similar to the vessels, but is just kind of looking at it in a different way. All right, so the next two down the list are our calendar and jobs features. These are pretty much identical to the classic vintrace, so I won't spend too much time on those, but if you are writing any work orders or any sort of jobs on the calendar, you can access them all through here. Jobs or harvest calendar, you can switch between the two different modes. You'll see all your same jobs on there that you can go through and add or complete. And likewise with the jobs, it's all the same sort of layout. So it's got the statuses and the filters down the left-hand side. We've got previous webinars for work orders and stuff like that, so you can go back and have a look if you want some more detail. But they're pretty much the same as they were, and likewise for the fruit intake console, but you can access it directly from the little fruit bin option in here. The next one we'll look at is the tank map. So this one, it's pretty much the same as well, but it's probably worth spending a little bit of time on just to set this up and sort of how to use it. So you'll see that I've already got a tank map created. So it's got all my tanks listed out there. I can hover over them and get the batch code and a bit more information. So volumes and capacities. I've got the product state. I've got the alcohol in there. So if you haven't yet used this feature, it's fairly handy. So all you really need to do is click the plus in the top right and create a new tank map. And again, this is where you sort of set up what the tank map should be doing. So what name you want to give it. So we'll say we've got the inside tanks. You can set up how many tanks you need to see. So depending on how many tanks in a particular location, it'll give you sort of a grid view of by default 10 by 8, but you might have a few more tanks you need to squeeze in, so you can update that amount. And there's also a starting zoom level. So if you want to keep it zoomed right out, or you want to have everything sort of fit nicely on the screen, you can adjust that. And then the same old sort of selection options of what you want to see. So I don't care about the product state or the owner or the grading, but I do want to see the description of my batch, and I want to see a couple of different lab results on those. So once you click next, I need to select my winery. So once you click next, you'll get this grid here, and now all you need to do is actually put in the tanks. So there's an option to add them one by one with the search field there, or you can use this from search, and this will give you a tank search option, which if we click search, it'll bring up all my tanks, and I can just highlight the ones that are in that particular location, or you can actually go by location there to grab in specific tanks. Once you've highlighted what you want, you can click the use button, and then we just drag and drop them out to actually set up your map. So some people obviously will have whiteboards in their office that do the same thing. This one will automatically update itself, so it might be worth taking a look at this if you haven't already. Sort of setting up your cellar like this, get it on a monitor or a screen somewhere, and that way you can kind of keep a sort of a live view. It'll automatically refresh itself. There is a refresh setting here, so it does it every 30 minutes, but you can sort of update that a bit more. So as wines are moving, during the day, this will update itself and tanks will go from one to the other. So if you haven't, worthwhile setting that up and having a play around. You'll be able to select different tank maps. I've got my inside and outside tanks that I sort of set up, and they're treated as two different maps. So you can kind of configure it really however you need to. All right, cool. So that was our tank map. We've got our lab console here that functions the same way as the classic interface, and likewise with the inventory, that also functions the same way. The only difference is we have added the operations menu in here that wasn't always there, just so you can get straight into receiving stock or dispatching or whatever you need to do. So we've just made it a little bit quicker to get some of those jobs in there. They're still available to do on work orders if you need to schedule a dispatch for some stock that you're sending out. But otherwise, all the sort of functionality remains the same here, so it shouldn't hopefully be too much of a difference. But one thing we have updated is the block section. And so again, we put it into that same sort of table view and sort of simplified it a little bit. So if you're looking at a list of blocks, you can kind of decide what you want to see. If you want to go to the sort of full view that you're likely used to, you can just click on the block name here or search for it, and it'll take you back to the block overview, which has all the tabs and all the information in there. So that's all still available. If you want a bit of a rundown on that, it's worth watching our our vintage harvest webinars that we've done in the past and we'll continue to do. We run through all those tabs there, so if you're not too familiar with it, that's worth a look. But yeah, in this table here, we can obviously configure what we want to see, and you'll see that I've actually got my BOME selected in there, so you can select lab details, and then by selecting 2020 to show sample data for, it's brought up the most recent results for those particular blocks. So it's pretty useful just to see what your last readings were from the sampling side of things, and then again you can filter based on the results or when they were tested. So it just gives you a little bit more sort of knowledge based in this blocks list than you would have previously had. So it's worth having a look at that one as well. And we've got the tags option, which we looked at with the bulk wines as well. You can tag a block and filter by that. So if you've got specific things that you want to track on a block, worth tagging it and looking at it that way. The plus up the top again, we can add a block here as well. So if you just need to add in a block really quickly, you realize you've got one missing, you'll get this option here. So you can give it a block name, the variety, all those kind of things that we need. And that will then add that block in. So that's obviously only the very basic information on that block, but you can again open it up. You'll get all the information here that you can then edit and go through. So if you want to put in expected yields or clones or anything like that, you just come into this section here and click at it, and you can go through and put any additional information. But we've simplified it just for the very basics. So if you're crunched for time, you need to get a block in, you can just hit the plus, add a block, and then go in and start intaking that fruit. All right, so the next tab down is the products or product allocation feature. So this one's actually pretty new pretty new one and isn't actually available in the classic vintrace. So if you do want to take advantage of this one, you'll need to jump into the new interface and work with it. But the idea is it'll allow you to allocate your bulk wine to your bulk wine or your finished goods to a product or an end product. So you see here I've got one called Premium Chard, which is my 2021 Chardonnay. I'm expecting or hoping to produce 1,200 litres, and currently I've supplied 500. So basically a demand and supply sort of matrix, if you will. So you can go through and set up the products in this table here and have a look at what you've actually allocated to. So you'll be able to look at the differences of what we need to produce. It'll tell you what we've allocated. So I've allocated this particular tank, 500 litres of it, and you can see if you've bottled or dispatched any of that stock. If you've allocated any stock, so you see here I've allocated some to myself. I want 1,200 litres, and then that's where we kind of get the difference there of that 700. So if that's something that interests you, it's worthwhile having a look at this feature and trying it out. We've got some useful guides and stuff on our help center to walk you through it. But yeah, definitely encourage people that do that kind of planning to the end product to have a look at our product allocations and see if you can get some use out of that. All right, so we've got our reports console. That's all the same that you're used to. So it'll have all the different categories and reports in there. But we'll have a look at our setup. So this setup here is the winery setup that everyone's used to and familiar with. We've just reordered, I guess, how to get into it, just for a little bit of simplicity. So we've got our categories down the side there. And for example, if I click on our vessels, you'll see that we've got a bunch of tiles there within the vessels category, so barrels, tanks, etc. And you just need to click configure, and that'll take you into the winery setup that you're familiar with, where you can go in and edit or add new barrels or whatever. So all we've really done is, instead of having you click through these categories here, we've kind of grouped them a little bit more logically and put them in tiles there. But I guess the main advantage now is you can actually search. So instead of trying to guess your way through where you're looking for, if you're looking for the product state, you can just type it in, and then whatever's linked to that search will come up. So you can go straight in and configure. So it's taken me a little bit of use to actually get my head around the search and putting that in all the time instead of trying to guess. But it's definitely a nice shortcut just to type in what you're after, and you'll be straight into the settings to adjust whatever it is. All right, so the bottom one down here, I said earlier, was the more options, and this is kind of the everything else section. So obviously we've got our sort of default options on there, but the more options will include anything else basically in vintrace that doesn't quite live in there, and obviously we couldn't quite cram everything into that list. So we put them into the more options. So it'll include things like the address book, the purchase and sales orders, if you're using client billing module, any of that kind of stuff, it'll all be in here. The majority of the software within this section is pretty much the same as what you used to. So your sales orders, your address book, that's all the way it was. It's just a different way of accessing it at the moment. So if there's something that you're looking for not in here, you'll find it hiding in this section. We've got a question there from Matt. How do you access historic details? And this is the place to do it. So you'll see in our products, we've got historic details, or historic wines. And this will basically just get you to fill in a batch code, or you can search by operations. So not too sure what's in this database, but I'll just search as a 20 and hit historic search. Maybe it wants a bit more than that. Didn't prepare one earlier for this, so I'll just do a blank search and hope that doesn't take too long. there we go. So you'll get something like this. Obviously, you can search up your batch codes. That'll give you all the operations that have been recorded, the volumes there as well. So if they're still in tank. So for example, we could click on this one that was packaged, and that'll just take you to the historic revision of that wine in the old product overview that you're probably used to. So you can have a look at all that same information, the history, the cost, etc. So yeah, that's how to get the historic details under products. The other way to get to that, if you have slightly different information, we do have the dispatch search under the tools there, so you can look at when you might have dispatched that packaged wine or the bottled wine. So for example, you could bring up and say, I want to look at this wine, I remember dispatching that, and then you can view the wine details, or if it's a stock item, you can view the stock item from there. That'll take you into the same sort of thing. So depending on what information you've got, you can find your way there. And if you get audited or you need to get some reports out, there'll be 2 quick ways to get in there. All right, cool. So we're almost wrapping up. So if there's more questions, please start sending those through, and I'll start getting through them. I've answered a couple of them, but if you've got questions now, please send them through, and we'll get stuck into some of those. So I guess while we wait for a few more questions to come in, I did mention down the bottom left there, we've got the little back arrow to get to the classic vintrace, and I did say the little question mark will get you the help. One thing that's heavily overlooked, it turns out, is a little plus icon. So if you just need another tab, so you might be on the tank map doing something, but you want to write a work order, just click the plus, and that'll open up a second vintrace. You can click a few. So if you want your dashboard up here, you want your tank map in this one, just click the plus. It'll give you different tabs to work on, so you don't have to be clicking in and out of things all the time. So that's just one of our sort of little hidden things down the bottom there that you definitely want to make the most of. So we've got a question, is there an easier way in the new interface to see vessel history? For instance, select the barrel and see everything it's held over time. So it pretty much works the same way in the new interface. So you can use the reports section for that, and under the equipment, we've got a couple of options. So there's the tank history report and the equipment usage report. So I don't quite know any of the barrel codes in this database, but you can select a barrel in here and then just a date range. Date range for when you're looking at, and it'll then give you a list. I'm not sure if this one will have too much, but it will give you a list of the batches in and out, the type of wine it was, and that kind of stuff. So you're pretty much the same way that you would have been doing it. So yeah, that's the report, and then the tank option is quite the same. In here again, you can put your dates in, and this one will give you a listing of what was in and out. Cool. So we got 2 questions there which are pretty related. Just about a bit of slowness, it seems, loading some of the pages. I guess if you're experiencing that, one thing it could be is obviously with the vessels tab, for example, you can actually put quite a lot on the page, and obviously the more you have, the longer it'll take to load. So it's probably worth just checking some of those things first. So if you for example, click absolutely everything, you've got this setting in particular down the bottom. You might have it set to 250, and plus all these things, it could take quite a while. It shouldn't take extremely long. So if you are experiencing that, if you can maybe give the support team a call, or even just record a little video of it so that we can pass on to our dev team. Obviously, we don't want you sitting there waiting all day to do simple tasks. But yeah, if you could definitely get, reach out with the specifics. That way we can kind of improve performance on those kind of things. Got a question here about, is there a way to track how many individual barrels or at least barrel groups are topped within a certain date? That is a good question. Let me just see if we've got, we did have a filter. I haven't seen it for a little while. So we did have a filter in here at one point or other, but I might have to chase it up. It was the last topped date. So that one doesn't look to be in there, but I think otherwise there isn't a specific way to do it for all your barrels. I guess for a barrel group, you could certainly look at the history of it. So you could jump into this section, into the jobs, and then filter by the type of operation. So you'll find in here there's a multi-topping. So if you're just looking at a particular batch, that's one way. The other way I'd suggest is in the reports console, you can use the operations section in here, and you can just actually select multi-topping and then run a report, and that'll show you all the topping operations that you've done, so you can look through the list of batches. And again, you can filter by that specific batch. So if you are just looking at one batch, this will still work, but probably just filtering by all the topping operations and then checking that out might be one way to do it. All right, cool. If there's any other questions, send them through. I think I've answered the majority. If I haven't, I will go back through and take a look or reach out to you directly. So I'll just hang around for a couple of minutes more and see what we get sent through. So I did see actually there's a question back here about the best way to search like the old product search and the classic product search. So I guess a lot of that functionality is sort of built into the vessels page here. It's not obviously exactly the same thing. So if there's certain bits and pieces that you were using in that product search that you can't do in here or even in the Batch Explorer, just reach out and let us know. Obviously, we don't want you to lose important functionality of what you were doing. So yeah, if there's certain things that you can't work out, just reach out and let us know, and we can do our best to add that in. Yeah, Wolf, I see your question. I've raised that one. I'll reach out and see where that progress is on that particular custom report thing that we're talking about. Cool. All right. So I think that looks like all the other questions. I'll still stay around and answer some if there are any more, but that pretty much wraps up the webinar for today. This will be uploaded to YouTube, and you'll hopefully get an email. If you're not getting those emails or you just want to jump onto our YouTube channel, you can head to our help center, and you'll see there's a training videos link, and there's a webinars link here as well. So jump onto those, and you'll be able to see obviously all the ones. This one will get added in there as well. So yeah, if you want to watch any training materials, we are actually uploading a few training videos at the moment. So you'll see in this particular list, there's a whole bunch. So we're adding all on the new interface. So it's worth having a look there. Very good training materials for any new stuff that you might get as well. So we're kind of going through the navigation pieces at the moment, and we'll get more of those as we go along. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining. I'll chase up some of those last questions that came through and any that didn't get answered. But thank you all for joining.